often yields tremendous dividends for society as a whole. No one wins when a family has to choose between working a job or safe childcare. No one wins when the only food options in a neighborhood are unhealthy and expensive. No one wins when people are forced to use the emergency room as their primary care physician. As a nation and as a society, I believe we have a responsibility to care for those who experience the greatest need and to create viable pathways out of generational poverty. I share all of this with you because it's easy when talking about one's personal journey, which is what this book is, to extrapolate and make the assumption that if only everyone did as we did, then they too would experience success. But that's not the case. It's naive, presumptuous, and grossly lacking in empathy to assume as much. In many ways, my privilege and my husband's privilege took root in our lives long before we were even born. Both of our parents had college educations, had good careers, owned homes, and were in happy, financially stable marriages before we were even conceived. These factors all combined to mean that by the time we were born, Nate and I were already several steps ahead of many of the other babies in the hospital that day. Adding to the circumstances of our families is the fact that we were born into safe, middle-class neighborhoods in the United States and thus were the beneficiaries of excellent medical care, superb public schools, plenty of nutritious foods, vibrant public library systems, summer camps, Girl/Boy Scout troops, church communities, horseback riding lessons, ballet classes, basketball teams, and much more. All of these privileges wove themselves together to form the basis for happy, warm, well-educated, well-cared-for childhoods. We didn't suffer traumas as children. We didn't endure domestic violence. We never experienced food insecurity. We were never homeless. Our electricity and water were never turned off. We were never evicted. We weren't exposed to parental drug use or addiction. Rather, we were encouraged, taught to read at home, taken on family trips to art museums and the symphony, shown how to cook and clean, disciplined with fair but firm methodology, taught to play nicely with our siblings, given pets to care for, and above all, loved unconditionally. These factors are profound in charting a person's course through life, and all of these benefits of our upbringings contributed in large part to the successes we've enjoyed as adults. And our privilege doesn't stop there. My husband and I are both white and heterosexual. I wish I didn't have to include these two facts as privileges, because I believe that people of all races, religions, genders, ethnicities, backgrounds, and sexual orientations should be treated equally. Sadly, however, that isn't the case in our country, and so I have to include these as factors integral to our successes. I wasn't subjected to individual or institutional biases in my applications for college, for graduate school, or for jobs. I was able to succeed in both academics and my career without the strain of racism or homophobia or any number of other prejudices. While I do think there are elements of my journey through extreme frugality that could be useful to anyone, I also realize that my frugality is elective. I don't have to save as much money as I do. I'm not pinching pennies in order to eat. I'm not a missed paycheck away from bankruptcy. I choose to be frugal, and I choose to live a lifestyle that has granted me financial independence. But it's no more due to my own aptitude than the fact that I can read and write. Sure, I had to work hard to learn to read and write, but I also had parents and teachers helping me out at every turn. I wish I could say that if everyone followed my advice, they too could reach financial independence. But that's simply not the case. There are too many layers of institutional privilege enabling my story for it to be replicable for everyone. There are many people who transcend difficult childhoods to achieve at the highest levels. Who you will grow up to be isn't imprinted at birth or predetermined by who your parents are, but it's undeniable that the road was easier for me. I didn't have to overcome anything in order to get where I am today. A memoir can only honestly represent a person's lived experiences, which is why I felt it was important to share all of the ways in which privilege courses through my life. I wrote this book to tell the story of how Nate and I did the unexpected, of how we broke free. I also want to encourage you to ask yourself the questions that guided our journey. What would you do if you didn't need your paycheck? What's your passion in life? And what's stopping you from making that a reality? I fully recognize that having the ability to even ask ourselves these questions